from Isinjiro. We are at the border of Uganda and Tanzania. We had some police deployments in some areas where we think that people have issues. But of recent, there is a message that came from the regions that all the police who have been deployed in some areas that are not in their specific police posts should be withdrawn and be taken at the sub-county.
Yes, sub-county.
What could be the reason?
Okay.
Is it budgetary issues? What could be the reason? And if you leave people who have been having security around them and now security has been withdrawn from them, what could be the remedy for that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, yes?
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Loki John Baptist. I'm the Member of Parliament for Facilities for us two, and not only us two, even the police, countrywide. Mr. Chairman, we wanted to implore the committee that is responsible for oversight for internal defense and internal affairs. There are ways that we can undertake to solve the accommodation crisis in most of our forces. Mr. Chairman, if you observe, some prisons in the country have devised means of buying their own machines to make blocks out of sand. They just scoop sand from the riverbed, they buy cement, they make blocks, and they build their own accommodation, their own houses. Mr. Chairman, I would love the police to copy the strategy that the prisons have implemented, and they have improved. They have improved their accommodation problems, challenges. So why can't us too, and police also do the same? You can buy cement. Every year, you buy a number of bags of cement, they make blocks, and they make their own houses. In about 5-10 years, the accommodation challenges will surely improve. Two, Mr. Chairman, I am seeing under vote 004, land compensation of about 201 billion. Mr. Chairman, this is a big issue for the UPDF and the communities where the barracks happen to be located. An example is Moroto 3rd Division headquarters in Moroto. The neighboring villages of Acholin, the neighboring villages of Lia, Singla, have been carved under UPDF barracks. And there is a lot of infighting, there is a lot of square balls between the UPDF and the communities. Mr. Chairman, when I see 201 billion, every other year they bring this budget for compensation. May we know which areas still have challenges of compensation countrywide? We have many barracks which are still complaining about non-payment of this land that has been taken by the UPDF, even with the dubious methods, because the communities have been there, but they only get to know this is UPDF land, you are all the squatters, we have the land title, what are you doing here? So, Mr. Chairman, we need to know that. Otherwise, Ugandans are suffering because of this soft land grabbing. Thank you.
Honorable Chair, what I wanted to add on my colleague's submission is on the area of land. Among the lands that we are having concern and we are having tensions on with the UPDF, we have Pade, which is around Akemo Coach. Previously, the land was for refugee, and then part of it is for the UPDF. But currently, the UPDF has crossed to the side of the community, and they've built structures there, which some of the community who are settling there currently are in a big tension between the UPDF with the civilian. So I wanted to get your clarification whether part of this money is going to cater to resolve this issue we are having in Pade district. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
I want to know from the chair of the Defense Committee,
there are families who have lost their dear ones in the hands of UPDF soldiers. And they're prosecuted in the military court-martial, and they're serving their sentences. But sometimes the ministry had promised to compensate the families of maybe the deceased. Like, there was an incident in Aleptong in 2018 where a soldier came from Moroto and killed the father, the wife, one child, and then left 3 children with nobody to take care of them. They had a court-martial within Aleptong district, and they promised to take care of these 3 children who remain without anybody. I've been struggling with these children. I've moved to defense so that these children could be helped. But I have not got any response. So I want to understand. I would just want to...
Honorable, at this level, at budget committee level, we are actually focused on the resource.
Yes,
But some of these issues are administrative. We cannot go to the nitty-gritty.
But do they have provision for that in their budgeting? That is what I'm asking, Chair.
That they break down across the country. Maybe Chairman will give us a response.
Yes.
Thank you.
Stability of our country. And I'm happy General is there. Honorable Kwiridwe, let me have the attention of my General as well. What has been happening is that in certain instances, for us, for example, for us who come from Otuke, from Karamoja, part of Paderi, naturally there we have been having instability in that region. And we met the president. A lot of resources were provided to stabilize the place. And we are grateful to UPDF for that. We are playing a critical role within the region to create stability for peace and for trade. That's why you brought in the element like Sujusa, how do you call it? The incursions in DRC. How do you call that? Suja project. And most of the time, sometimes this money has come through a supplementary. I don't know whether the provisions that we've been able to make through supplementaries have solved some of your problems. Maybe you'll comment on that. I think an area which is very key, and it is very shameful for us as a country, is where our policemen sleep. Soldiers, they are always moving up and down. Their barracks have been well built. Mr. Chairman, I'm concerned that we have not put decent accommodation for our police. Even the ones that are near here, you go to Naguru. And UPDF has done something which is fantastic. They have the UPDF engineering brigades across the country. And the resources that we give them, they are basically doing their own buildings, and they're assisting us to build our health centers and some of the schools around the country. Wouldn't the police be able to adopt a similar strategy where we give you a resource and you now start building? Or if you don't have it, you borrow from UPDF so that they can help us to start building accommodation for police. It is terrible where those people are sleeping. So I would recommend strongly that we look for some resources available for construction of police posts. The other second one is that we have crimes being committed in the rural areas. President has allocated 12 policemen per sub-county. 18. When I met my DPC, they said 12, so 18. They have nowhere to stay. A form of uniports would help. The chairman has alluded to it, but we need to give these policemen where to stay. And with the numbers, I'm told some numbers are coming up by this April. So June, they will be distributed across the country. So we need to house them. And additional numbers, either for soldiers or for policemen, that's a welcome idea. Recently, my General, I'm finishing. I passed at Kiriandongo district headquarters, and I found there's a man called, Mr. Chairman, you would excuse me on this one, Moses Kalangwa. He has 2 military vehicles. He has soldiers guarding him. He's a civilian, I'm told he is a chairman of NRM at Kayunga. He's benefiting from military guards, military vehicles, Mr. Chairman. Would you have the opportunity to ask the head of the military, the general is here representing them, how in the world would a civilian who has no constitutional authority, having 2 military vehicles and with military escorts, which means some of this money, Mr. Chairman, which we are giving you, you're asking for, there are some civilians who are benefiting from it unconstitutionally. You remember the issue of Kaiura fuel, where civilians, some of the politicians were even going there to extract fuel endlessly without accountability. So can the UPDF tell us where Moses Kalangwa is getting 2 military vehicles with about 8 or 12 escorts? Who is he in the structure of this country? What powers and authorities does he have? And he's on a serious land grab across the country, and he's threatening all the policemen. Whether you're a DPC, RPC, he even came up to here harassing director of operations. So this country must be a country of laws. No individual should usurp constitutional rights given to institutions. Yes, please.
Thank you.
Government work. Don't do that kind of imposition. Don't threaten government officials. They work silently,
I
nicely,
think, Honorable
and they
Mara,
provide reports.
it is taken. It is taken. It's taken, it should be addressed. I thank you so much for God and my country.
Part number 1 will be on proposed allocations. And Honorable Chair, if you look at page 1, we have a table, and that particular table summarizes 3 important parameters of the budget. We look at the proposed budget for the financial year 2025-2026, the BFP indicative figures for the financial year 2025-2026, and also the approved budget for the current running financial year 24-25. But most importantly, Chair, on that table, if you look at the very last parameter, which is year-on-year growth of the budgets of the different votes, because we have 7 of them. We have the Ministry of Trade, which is vote 015, and the year-on-year growth is 12%. We have vote 110, which is for URI, Uganda Industrial Research Institute. The growth is 4%. Then we have vote 154, UNBS, Uganda National Bureau of Standards, and the growth is 147%.
Yeah, that is the one.
Yes. We also have Uganda Free Zones and Exports Promotion Authority, and the growth in the budget is 13%. Then we have vote 607, local governments under trade, and the growth there is 217%. And we have the vote 022, which is the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities. The growth is 4%. And we have vote 117, Uganda Tourism Board, and the growth is 249%. Honorable Chair, most of the votes under the jurisdiction of our committee had an increase in their draft budget for the financial year 25-26 when compared to this current running financial year 24-25, the approved budget. In addition, there was a significant change in the draft budget compared to what had been indicated in the budget framework paper for the financial year 25-26, with a number of Parliament's recommendations being considered. And specifically, Chair, when you look at the Ministry of Trade, Industries and Commerce and Cooperatives, compared to the indicative figure in the budget framework paper, the budget for the ministry increased by Uganda shillings 114 billion, indicated in the draft estimates, to cater for investments under UDC, which had no budget for investments in the budget framework paper. Under UNBS, the budget increased from 57.04 indicated in the BFP by Uganda shillings 81.29 billion. As you're aware, Parliament had actually recommended that UNBS be given an additional 98 billion, and they were given 81.29 billion. And our expectation was that this money would address wage, non-wage, and development components. But the money only addressed non-wage and development. When you look at the local government grants for trade and industry, following Parliament's recommendation to increase the grant by at least 2 billion, the conditional grant was increased from 2.9 billion indicated in the BFP to Uganda shillings 8.8 billion. On page 2, Chair, Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, the ministry's budget has also increased from 149 billion indicated in the BFP by 137.22 billion. And this was incorporating the recommendation that the UWA budget should be consistent with the projected NTR collections. The UWA budget increased from 72 billion indicated in the BFP to Uganda shillings 191 billion, which is their projected NTR for the financial year 25-26. Then finally, UTB. The draft budget increased, Chair, by 35.2 billion from the BFP, which was incorporating Parliament's recommendation to increase the budget by at least 15 billion to enable UTB to hire market destination representative firms in strategic markets and also to undertake aggressive marketing and promotion and hold the Pearl of Africa trade exhibition. Chair, the committee considered and recommended that the following amounts of money be allocated to various votes as indicated in the table below. And these were also based on some reallocations.
Trade and industry, but it was a long story. We started it here. Because without standards, as we discussed here, without standards, agro-industrialization is just a song. Because for you to be able to export anything out of Uganda, you must meet certification, you must do the testing, certification, calibration, so that a kilo here is a kilo there. And if you say there is sugar here, there must be sugar really. So the story of agro-industrialization without standards was not a done story. We start with PS, and actually took a story. I engaged the C, please. If you are talking about Artemis, agro-industrialization, please look at standards. And actually now we need the next step, Mr. Chairman, is to look at the law. Metrology, the law on metrology. because you must address standards at 3 levels. There are scientific standards, which must be developed by UNBS. There are industrial standards, which must be applied to industry. Then there are legal standards, which my brother, those of Mpuga will have know. And when they arrest you, they say you offended this standard. You are selling bread which is 30 kilograms, 30 grams, instead of 100 or 1,000. So this level of standard, and we are still, our law. Our law is talking about the British, that if there is a dispute on the weight, you have to go to London. How can we be going to London in this time and age? It is our law. Did you know that we are still subject to the Crown law with respect to standards? After so many years of independence. So the committee should interest themselves in that. I think we have got a good story. It's a big, massive change. I think now government is responding to the story of ATMIS, agro-industrialization, tourism, manufacturing. So now we can take tea out of ATMIS. We can take the tea. In this respect. I think you are happy, Chairman, this time. Oh, thank you. So I think the rest of the submissions, unless there is anything you want to bring to light here, maybe page 3, you can, there are allocations. Give us a story on page 3 and 4.
Chair, on page 2, I think they have done recommendation for reallocation. Yeah. But the issue is they didn't indicate how much MTEF was in for those votes. And then what have you reallocated? So you have your recurrent development and your total. But what was in the MTEF? And then what is it that you've recommended? It's missing. Because that is a very good thing which he has been talking about. That if reallocation, do it within your committee. And then you just come and report, we have done this. So it will be interesting to follow what was originally provided for.
It's actually on page 3. Page 3. You open page 3.
Yeah.
Reallocations, so, there is a source, the destination, and justification.
Exactly. So maybe, Chair, if it pleases you, I can proceed with the reallocations. So under reallocations, when you go to page 3, the reallocations that were approved by the House. Number 1, under Uganda National Bureau of Standards, there is the retention of staff, which was from the non-wage component to the wage component. And the reallocation is of 10 billion shillings, which was divided in 2 parts. Part 1 is Uganda shillings 5.8 billion to enhance salaries of existing staff. And the justification for that is to match with other scientists and also for the retention of skilled personnel. The total budgetary requirement was 18 billion shillings because the committee was informed that a number of skilled staff are leaving UNBS in favor of similar career opportunities in other government agencies that are offering higher salaries at the same salary scale. And this is reflected comprehensively in our report on page 54. So this is to start the enhancement. Part 2 of the 10 billion is a 4.2 billion Uganda shillings for the recruitment of more staff. This is to enable the recruitment of additional staff because they are critically understaffed to cover the country comprehensively. Under Vote 022, Ministry of Trade, Wildlife and Antiquities, there is the need to lift the ceiling of Uganda Wildlife Authority by 48 billion. We have the Wildlife Fund, and we were informed that the funds are available. However, the dilemma they have is that there's a ceiling, there's a budgetary ceiling of 191.9 billion, and the committee recommended that this ceiling could be increased to 240 billion. And the 48 billion increment was to cater for three important elements. One, 38 billion was to be, is recommended to be for UWA, to enable Uganda Wildlife Authority address the human-wildlife conflicts in Kidepo Valley National Park, Murchison Falls National Park, and Queen Elizabeth National Park, and 6 other funding gaps which are listed on page 62 and 63 of the committee's report, excluding the purchase of a helicopter. The other part of that money is Uganda shilling 6.2 billion to be transferred by UWA to Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute. And the justification for that is for the completion of a girls' hostel at Uganda Wildlife Research Training Institute. Part of that money, 3.8 billion shillings, is to be transferred to Uganda Hotel and Tourism Training Institute, also for the ongoing construction of the girls' hostel at that particular institution. Then, Honorable Chair, the House deferred some deferred some reallocations pending submission of information. And that was on UDC. And under UDC, the House had deferred all the money that was allocated to Binzika, which was 39.77 billion, and 5 billion shillings from fine spinners, and reallocated to Bundibujo chlorine manufacturing plant, Luwero fruit factory, Lira spinning mill, Noya fruit factory, and iron ore processing, Glisco and Sangavet. But the House had indicated to the committee to have some reconsiderations when the minister pleaded before the House. And following submissions of information, which we didn't have to make some decisions, we recommend that fine spinners is allocated 30.4 billion shillings, because there's an agreement that this investment would be in 2 years, and this is the last. We had already made some investment, and this would be the last part, and fine spinners will not be coming for any more support.
Procedure, Chair.
And then Uganda shillings 28.9 billion.
Yes, Honorable Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. The Honorable Chairman is submitting what was the position of the committee vis-à-vis what the position of the House or vis-à-vis the position of the Minister. I seek clarification, but would it be procedurally right that you also share with us the reasons for the deferring of the committee to that effect?
Okay.
Because that was never highlighted clearly when decisions were being made.
Honorable Chair, through you, if you recall, one of the MPSs that was passed with amendments was the one of trade.
Yeah.
And all other aspects of our budget were passed except the aspect of UDC and in relations to Binzika and fine spinners.
Exactly, that's what it says. Give the details.
So,
by the deferment.
so Binzika, before the ministerial policy statements, Binzika had, there was indication that Binzika needed 39 billion shillings. And so the committee was unsure about which Binzika the ministry was talking about. Because as it stands, when we inquired from the minister, which Binzika they intended to support. There was Binzika Enterprises Limited and a Binzika International Poultry. So there was confusion. So the committee, because we didn't have much time, next day we were supposed to present our MPS, the committee indicated that because we lacked information to make some decisions, then this money would be taken to projects that were already appraised. So when the minister appeared before the House on the day of presenting this MPS, he pleaded with the House that the question of Binzika was critical. And the presiding officer on that day...
Which Binzika now?
So the Binzika that is...
The one which was critical. The Binzika International.
So the Binzika that is here...
Enterprises.
So the Binzika that is here is the Ugandan-owned Binzika, which is about 30 years old. It was a company incorporated in 1990. So the documents were brought to the committee. We have an entire file there. So we were able to make our assessments, but this was after the MPSs because they delayed to bring the documents. But the presiding officer had given them a window to interact with the committee. So,
Chair, the argument that preceded that was the criteria of selecting, of bailing out of companies that are struggling financially. What came out conspicuously is that those which have access to the president, and the demand was to have a clear policy on bailout, which one qualifies and which one doesn't qualify. What we are having now from the committee is it's a window two approach. And that's why you even had the discrepancy. One says, you give them. Now, which one are you giving? So putting flesh to this skeleton was beyond the responsibility of the committee, and we thought that it would go back and be well-baked. Maybe it would come back in a supplementary or something.
Honorable Chair, if you look at the ministerial policy statement of the ministry, the ministry gave us a number of projects that were already appraised by the board. So it was then the decision of the committee, because a number of the projects already have support in the budget. So we looked at those that did not have support, and we made some reallocations in consultation with the minister and the UDC team. So the records of our engagements are also available. So that's why there is no entity here that was picked out of the blue, but it was picked from those that were appraised and are available in the ministerial policy statement. And also for some of these projects...
Sir. Clarification?
Yes, Honorable Mpuga.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Chair, for the committee for that information. I am looking at page 4, again on the initial referral of Binzika and fine spinners. Hitherto, Binzika had 39.77 billion, and then fine spinners 5. I need to understand whether the 5 was the initial allocation and how it catapulted to 30.4. What was the nature of consideration for this to change from 5? When you moved to the 5 initially, had you left a balance and you only returned this? Because this is very important information for us to understand how this...
reallocations. One is for Binzika, the entire amount was taken out so that we could be able to attend to the other praised projects. For fine spinners, 5 billion was removed, and we left the rest of the budget for fine spinners. Because you'll notice on the day of engagement, even in the House, the presiding officer had also indicated that indeed fine spinners had received so much support over the years. And so we thought the 5 billion would be taken and given to Lira, because which is in the same value they're handling, they're in the textile ecosystem. So we would also be supporting, in the spirit of balanced regional development. Fine spinners and Lira spinning mill are doing the same thing. So we had indicated that they could share that figure. So that was the spirit.
Mr. Chairman, we had talked of line regarding Lira spinning mill, and the indication is that this intervention is very important, but we really need to take into account it should be with the proposed new owner during the process of purchase, because as a community we want to own the spinning mill, and therefore
we've written there to initiate the purchase, which Honorable Paul O'Mara is talking about, and revamping of the facility. So we've assessed has so many modes of financing and investing in companies. In some of the companies, they do lease financing, meaning that they will commit an amount and then eventually get out after some years. In some, they are simply purchasing shares. In others, there's full ownership, like the Nile hotels. So for this one of the Lira spinning mill, they want to 100% own it. The owner says he's ready to sell everything.
Okay,
so,
thank you.
Clarification,
Mr.
Chair.
Chair, yes.
The talking notes. We are very clear on the interest of the taxpayer in each of these. Where it is a grant, a note is taken that's a grant. Because questions will arise on the floor as to whether these are donations. Before we dole out donations, the taxpayer will represent Ulanton whether they are donations or a share interest, and therefore interrogate the nature of a memoranda or nature of undertaking between UDC and these entities before we commit.
Information.
Because the chair has spoken in general terms to educate us on the variety of engagements.
Of this money, how is it moving?
Chair, I think I want to agree with the Honorable. So is it debt? So that needs to be very clear on every entity that where money is going, and if it is shareholding, how much percentage? You've seen the one about Yak, which has been a moving target. We have remained at 40. We have
Share. How much are we buying? What's our stake, either as equity or as debt? And whatever if it is debt, what are the payment terms?
And Chair, along the same line, what is the extent of involvement of the Office of the Solicitor General or the Attorney General
in terms of the
as far as legalizing this documentation is concerned?
So is that something you can help us track?
Yes, we have the information here, Chair, for the benefit of the Budget Committee. We have looked at all the companies, the investments that are entailed in our report here. The total investment is 45.6 billion, and the total investment
What's the value of the company?
The 6 national budget estimates are based on the 4th NDP and National Budget Framework paper, which you guided us. Though no discussions should reference what Parliament approved during the National Budget Framework paper and what was published. The second budget interventions and addressed Parliament concerns on financial year 2025-2026 budget estimates and additional resource network. Now, one, in my sector, non-wage recurrent additional resources of 10.547 billion based on the budget framework provision for the Ministry of Internal Affairs. This funding supports the rollover of the supplementary budget for 24-25 to address shortfalls in the security coordination and community service orders for custodial sentences, totaling to 7.96 billion. Additionally, the subvention to Amnesty Commission amounting to 1.5. You can disregard the other billion. It was a mistake. Two, we note a reinstatement of the financial year 24-25 budget for food for UPDF of 172B and the defense equipment project, which is 130 billion. Three, enhancing the budget of NCIC for non-wage amounting to 28,846 billion. and Uganda shilling 17.094 under the development budget. 4, Uganda Police Force amounting to 180 billion to address shortfalls in feeding, uniforms, training. Now, this training, Honorable Chair and Honorable colleagues, is different from what we captured earlier. In earlier we found each ministry mentions training. And then they were saying, since we have a national service college, since we have UMI, why don't we empower them so that they train civil servants? So the training under my sector is a training that is supposed to be there. Continuous training, touring and retooling. So fuel, classified assets, vehicles, and all that. 5, Uganda prison service amounting to 10B for reinstatement of budget for seed multiplication. 14 billion for electoral roadmap funding, and 40 billion shortfall on the budget for prisoners' feeding requirements. Then the last, you see, NIRA amounting to 100.43 billion to purchase ID cards, remuneration of enrollment staff and data processors, enrollment forms, fuel, logistics for phase 2 of the exercise for enrollment of national ID cards. So, Chair, we looked at the budget. We looked for where we could do a saving. And using the mandate that is given to us, where we could do reallocation. And this is what I wish to present to this committee. There is a table towards the end of your report, a reallocation table, 5. It is attached. For me, allow me to present this. It is in line with our mandate. It is exactly what we will give to the Committee of Budget. Point number 1. On vote 144, which is Uganda Police, we noted that the assistance to Uganda Police project closed in financial year 2023-2024. And it was extended for 1 year, 2024-2025. However, it was still being maintained in the budget estimates, despite the project lasting more than 13 years, which was, of course, creating a difficulty in its evaluation. So the committee proposed that any outstanding contractual obligations be transferred to institution development projects of Uganda Police, and that the table indicates that. 2, we noticed a duplication under territorial policing. You can refer this to page 22 for details. You'll see it. So to reduce the operational budget, so we propose to reduce the operational budget of police, especially the fuel component, by 30% of the following departments. 1, metropolitan policing, and then mobile patrol. So we reallocated this saving, Honorable Chair, to CID, to K9 unit, most deserving, because they were starved and yet they are good. And we also reallocated it to Amnesty Commission. Honorable Chair, there was nothing we could, on defense budget, there was no saving. And this is what I present to you, honorable colleagues. I thank you so much.